Hello and welcome to Success Lab podcast with Christoph and Tim. Hello, Christoph.
Hi, Tim.
Hi. So for everyone who's new to this podcast, we make topics like motivation, personal development, health, and life satisfaction more graspable and break down the knowledge from different sources and personal experience in a practical way. We want to inspire you guys and inspire you to join us on our journey so we can strive together for improvement as a community and become the best version of ourselves. Today is actually a very special episode. It is Christmas season. That's why we both have Christmassy, we're wearing Christmassy things. So, and today we're gonna talk about presentation, storytelling, talking in public, and just communication in general. I think there's a lot of topics we're going to touch on.
Mm-hmm.
And Christoph, I want to ask you right away, what is your background? Because you have something going on here, don't you?
Maybe a little bit. Well, hi, everyone. Also from me, I think it's okay to wish everybody a Merry Christmas. Thank you very much for tuning in the Christmas holidays and still getting this education flow going. My background is a little bit in those topics. I got some competences through some lectures and education, and I have also a mentor. He's from Australia. He's called Vinh Giang. He's Australian and Vietnamese, and he taught me a lot about public speaking, communication skills, presentation skills. And 4 months ago, so this was a little bit around July, August 2023. When we rewatch this episode, it's going to be very funny. There I made the decision to be self-employed and to open a consulting, coaching, and teaching business, educational business around public speaking. And I focus on children and young people because I think I have the biggest leverage on them, and more importantly, they have the biggest leverage on the world, the impact of the world. So that's why it's very fulfilling to talk and to work with children and teenagers. So my age group is between 14 and maybe 24 years old. So people who are also going into the work life, and in our age, which is not surprising, but very cool to see people who directly after their high school went to work. Now they are in management positions, and now they have to firstly really present themselves and stand in front of a group of people regularly. So every day they have to do presentations, and they have no idea how. And this is a little bit here in Austria deficiency, because I, for myself, haven't learned anything useful about public speaking in school and had to teach myself everything. So also not the school where we went to, I really didn't get any useful knowledge. How was it for you? I think you are also a little bit of a natural talent in public speaking, that it's not really necessary to involve yourself into those roles and those practices and stuff, because you all mostly do it out of your hand, just shake it out of your hand. But some knowledge you have acquired. What were your information sources?
So thank you, first of all, for this compliment. I do think I like talking. That's actually one reason why we're doing this podcast. I do like talking, and usually I'm known for someone who talks a lot. And so maybe to a certain degree, I was always like prone to talk a lot, to maybe like doing presentations. In terms of what my sources were, I do think I learned some things in high school that taught me to present or be more confident on stage. So when we had like projects, was it in English or in German, whatever, it was like projects, and we had to like present them in front of class. I think I learned some of those things. But there's nothing particular, I think. Usually I would probably say after like high school, I also try to improve this presentation game and being more well spoken also. So I think reading, now talking also in English, like when you're talking in English presentation, I think for me it helped to read a lot and to listen to like TED Talks, for example. So TED Talks, I really like listen to them, and I try to mimic what they do, or YouTube videos that analyze certain very charismatic people, like very famous role models. That helped a lot.
And we both, we both already went in Vienna to a TEDx event, but we both are also going to one. Is it right? Did you buy a ticket for that?
I did. I'm going actually. What is tomorrow? It's tomorrow.
Oh,
I'm going
wow.
tomorrow.
Yes. For me, it's next week.
Oh, it is. That's very cool. Yeah. So we will
Because we
share
are on
our
a different side of the globe, you know.
Yeah, I think it will be fun, and we will definitely learn a lot. Yeah. About this TED talk, isn't there something we did in our past which is kind of connected to this kind of thing?
That was the beginning of the idea, right? The TED Talks.
I think it was, yeah.
A mutual friend of ours talked to us, texted us. She wants to build an event or a gathering for us, for the inner circle, for evenings, and to practice public speaking or speaking in front of a crowd. And we named it, if we translate it word for word, it's going to be pitch night. So we pitch in front of a crowd and we really practice it. And it was a blast, wasn't it?
It was fun. It was a lot of fun.
How did it work? Would you maybe tell them the principles of this?
Yeah, so basically, I mean, it was always a little bit different, but generally speaking, we had one theme, which was, for example, emotional talk, right? And everyone prepared something, and either with some slide or anything, or without, and then we just presented the talk, and we just listened to it and then gave feedback. And I think this experience, it's quite simple, but it really, first of all, it was a lot of fun, and second of all, we learned a lot, like through the feedback and just doing it. I mean, just doing it is already a thing. If there's like 5-6 friends, it's still not easy to do those talks, and even especially when the topic is not like just talking out of the blue, it's actually something you prepare and you want to like conquer their attention. And and then sometimes we even like put a twist on it and made it more tricky and challenging to like do it, make it more uncomfortable, like throwing in phrases they have to say, or talking about a topic they don't want to talk, for example.
Yeah,
do you remember?
We had some very controversial topics which we will not mention here in this podcast. But where we all were against this topic, but we still had to some kind of support it, which was very weird. People were shouting from the crowd and trying to distract us. And it put us regularly out of our comfort zone, and we used our voice. And I think today is also a day where I quote a lot of people. And Vinjang, the public speaking mentor I have, he said, acquisition of knowledge brings about satisfaction, but it is the application of knowledge that brings about fulfillment. So it's really nice. And I saw myself in a rabbit hole of just acquiring knowledge and learning. But the jump in competence it gets when you really practice it, when you use this tool, this screwdriver, for the first time, then it brings about fulfillment. This is also nice. So it's not just it's getting better, but you also get fulfillment out of it. And I think it's a really nice saying. Yeah.
So when you're saying you got fulfillment out of it, you mean by practicing those speaking tools, presenting, storytelling, and so on?
Yes.
Right? Yes. What kind of tools?
Okay. There are several topics that you can tackle when you're going into the world of public speaking or speak in public on a regular basis. So of course you have to divine between two things. One thing is your visual image, which is kind of clear how it goes out. So it's not only the clothing, but it's also your posture, for example, or how your hair looks or how your mimic is. That's also your visual image. But more importantly, there's the vocal image, which is more important because it's harder to work with that and to improve this one. So the visual image is created like 2 seconds into seeing a person. So before a person watches the podcast or listens to our voices, they see us on video, if you turn on the video thing, and they create assumptions. And those assumptions will hopefully, if they're positive, be turned into beliefs if they hear our voice. So first, our visual image, which is the first thing we see, it creates assumptions, and then with your vocal image, those assumptions turn into beliefs. So this is very important to say.
Mm-hmm.
Visual image are first impressions, the way we dress, the body language, and the beliefs or the vocal image. There we already go into the technical terms. People who are already in the storytelling world, they know those verbs, those terms. It's the 5 vocal foundations, which we can look into quickly. Then there we have 4 archetypes in which we can live into. Then also all those storytelling techniques, which is a huge topic, and I'm still only grasping the top of it. But this is a very, very steep bottle. And especially vocal image cannot be bought. So visual image, you can buy an expensive suit. You can make a $500 haircut, like Harvey Specter in Suits. But the vocal image has to be earned. Can be helped by the visual image, but it cannot be bought and has to be earned. What do you say about this?
Interesting, yeah. I was immediately saying in my head, okay, what if, you can do trainings, right? Which is also kind of buying, but you have to put in the effort. So I think you still have to do hard work. And yeah, I do agree. That's why it's challenging, right? Like you need to work for it. You need to consciously do something and practice. So I would agree.
Maybe the first thing I can present out of 5 vocal foundations, it's a thing that if you know this, that's a cool 80-20 rule. You just put 20% of your effort in and your vocal image improves by 80%. So if you apply those 5 things, it's going to be a big difference. Vocal foundation number 1 is the rate of speech. It all sounds quite simple, but you have to be aware of it. Rate of speech, what could that be?
It's like how fast you're putting out words.
Yes. So most of the time people speak, also us, we are speaking too fast. So we should slow down, of course, right?
Yes.
But even more importantly, we should vary our speed. It is so crazily effective to slow down before an important topic or an important word and speed up with things that are not really that necessary, but it's loosening up a little bit. So if people are talking about the personal life and it was funny that blah, 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 they can go a little bit faster. But if there is knowledge behind it and people have to remember it, then you can slow it down.
So that's still the first one, the rate of speech. We're still at the first one, right?
Yes, it's still the rate of speech.
And when it's important, you want to slow down, right?
Yes.
Okay.
You really want to slow down the rate of the words you're saying. And there's also a very cool effect or bad effect. It's called the knowledge curse. So if people, for example, I've seen it at Diplomarbeit or a bachelor thesis presentation and defensio, or welcome speeches of a birthday or a funeral or a wedding. A speech which is quite important, and this person is not is not speaking a lot in public, and therefore is very nervous, and practice this speech a lot at home. So they went over and over with the speech again and again and again. So they just memorize their words and just want to get it over as fast as possible. And the knowledge curse is the thought in their head, yeah, it's kind of boring what I'm going to say. That's why I'm speeding up. But you always have to remember that you know your content and it bores you, but your listener hears it the first time. So if this knowledge curse is also in your awareness, then you slow it down even more, especially for important parts.
So always assume that, even if it's maybe not 100% true, but always assume that the listeners are super interested in your topic.
It's also a little bit your mission.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be on your behalf if the person is interested in your topic or not. So it helps,
but at least
if the person is interested in model trains, in little trains.
Mm-hmm.
But you can make it interesting for them. That's, I think, the art of storytelling, that you can really change the focus of your audience how you want.
But about the second point, it's curse of knowledge is the second point, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so curse of knowledge, you don't want to assume that the audience is bored by your speech.
Yes, I rephrase it a little bit. The knowledge curse is that a joke that you're saying, for example, you heard this joke 500 times in the practicing round, and therefore it is boring for yourself. And therefore you speed it up unconsciously. Your audience hears it the first time. So you really have to slow it down again. That's a knowledge curse, which is affected very often. I've heard it a lot.
What do you think about?
I'm sorry.
Wait, that was not number 2?
No. It's still number 1, and we have 4 to go.
Oh, what do you think about when you're having a presentation? Like literally in 5 minutes, you're in classroom or before the presentation, behind the curtain, and you're having a presentation in 3 minutes. Should you repeat the thing before or not?
Yeah, I would repeat it, but not trying to memorize it. So I know I cannot change anything, but I know I'm nervous. And there were a lot of situations where I hated myself because I didn't rehearse it right before the presentation. So it's all some types of person or learning types, but which influence the answer I'm giving. But I think you can do whatever you want that is not affecting your some kind of brain structure or neuron structure. If you just rehearse it like, wow, I don't care, then it's okay. Don't try to memorize or change anything.
Okay. In my experience, when I just did a talk the other day, I think it helps if you do like rehearse the beginning. But I didn't want to stress myself out with the whole thing because it's actually just making me nervous, and I already prepared for it. So I knew with going into the presentation, I knew my preparation was solid, was good. I'm good. So I had to trust, and I wasn't nervous because I had to trust in my preparation. So the only thing I did is kind of the getting in, because usually you get on stage and you're nervous still. But if you have like the first sentence right off the bat is easy, the other things will come.
Yeah. Yes, it's so cool, the effect when you're feeling more and more comfortable on the stage, then how it flows, and you don't really think about what is going next, but you already have it ingrained in your, maybe your gut brain, I don't know, but in some different kind. So it just flows. It's really cool, like surfing on a wave.
All right, let's go to your point number 2.
Number 2. Now it's just number 2. It's getting simpler and simpler. Volume. The volume of speech. What could that be?
It's the volume. So it's
Yeah.
basically how loud you're
Right.
speaking, like loud or like not loud, or
Yes, just the volume. So the volume is, if you have a rating or a grade of 1 to 10, you should be on a 7.
Okay.
To try this out, you have to try out a 1 of 10 at home and a 10 of 10 also at home, please. Don't scream in front of the stage just to try it out. If you know your limits, the lowest volume you can produce out of your voice, which is for me quite high. I have a quite loud voice. And then a 10 of 10, where most people have to close their ears. Then, and only then, you can tell yourself when it's a 7 out of 10. And you also should need constant feedback from other people. It's for your audience also the tip. We often ask the other one. I asked Tim for feedback. Tim asked me for feedback. Was that loud? Was that clear? Some stuff like this. So it's really important to really get some feedback. And if you talk with a volume of 7 out of 10, you gain way more confidence. You get more authority. Vitality. This is how it's called, vitality. And you also seem more alive. You're not a dead person. And they believe you more what you say. So it could be, I don't want to scrap on some bad topic, but if you're a flat earther and you're talking a 7 out of 10, more people will believe you than if you're just in a 4 out of 10. Yeah. So that's the volume. Also quite simple. The next 2, they're a little more interesting, a little more complex. Number 3 is pitch and melody. Pitch and melody is which actual pitches or notes of the piano, which keys of the piano you really play. And there it's very important to take or to use as many keys as possible, which is one of the universal laws. He was saying is that you should use all the 88 keys of your keyboard because it's way more natural. And people often also say, yeah, but I'm also only used to this like octave. It's like 16, 15 notes, something like this. And they say it's not natural if I talk in a higher or lower pitch, but it's actually that you're just not used to it. And it's way more natural if you use more keys of your piano. And we can do a comparison. Can you do you have a favorite book?
Yes.
Yeah. Can you
My favorite book?
Say it.
7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Very good. And can you quote one page of this book?
Not a whole page, no.
No? I mean, you have read it several times. You love this book. And you cannot quote one page. Okay, interesting. How about your favorite song?
Wait, what? A whole page?
How about your favorite song?
Okay. Yeah, I wouldn't. I can't call the whole song. There's no way. No way.
Really?
No. I'm first of all, I'm bad with songs.
Okay.
Second of all, no.
Okay. I can tell you in general that people know one song by heart, mostly their favorite song. For me, it's Just the Two of Us by Grover Washington Jr. But I have to say that normally people can quote a song, which is in average the same amount of words as one page on a book. And for rap songs, and a lot of people can quote rap songs, like Rap God of Eminem or something like this, they can quote this whole song, and it is double the amount of one page of an average book without pictures. And this is because there is a melody. A melody and a varying pitch, especially if it's soothing for our brain, so it's harmonic. It is the speech and the words are more memorable.
The melody and pitch.
Yeah,
that's 3 and 4. What's the difference?
That's number 3.
Oh, it's both number 3.
Yeah, that's 3. So pitch and melody is some kind of the same thing. A technique of practicing this is maybe the siren technique. You take a children's book and you go with while you're reading, you go with your voice up as high as possible and then down as low as possible. And you do it for some pages and you get used to it. You have to get used to your instrument, which is your vocal cords. Okay, let's go faster to the next one, which is tonality, where people could be confused. Dude, that's the same like pitch or melody. No, it is not. So tonality is the emotion which we inject into our words. Yeah, so there are the most common emotions are happy, sad, disgust, angry, surprised, and fearful. And all of those you should be able to mimic with your face. And your face is the most beautiful remote control you have on your body because it can inject all your words with emotions. I did this test with some of my students in a workshop where I turned to the wall. They can't see my face. And I said something and they had to tell me which emotion I have or wanted to inject into my words. And they were right 100% of the times. I said not a sad word like death or a happy word like sun, but I said I was just reading out a text, a very neutral text, and injected it, for example, with happy and sad and angry and all of those things. And they figured out all those emotions. So it works, I have to say.
Interesting. That's actually the reason why when you're a salesperson, you want to smile and use the emotions when you're on the call with your client.
On your phone. They don't even see you. And maybe some audience people don't even see us now. You can still feel the emotions which we want to inject in the words.
Nice one.
Fifth one, last one, very simple one, is the...
Oh,
pause.
you asking me?
No.
Oh, the pause. Oh.
Yeah.
See, you just got me. Like, I'm like, wait, what's happening?
Theatrical
That's so
pause.
powerful. The pause is so powerful.
Isn't it?
Go on, yeah.
No, that's it. When you pause, you give the audience time to process. So it's not only it gives you more power, but you also, it's more natural. You give the audience time to think about what you have said. You give yourself time to think about what you're going to say. It's beautiful. It's really nice.
It is very tricky though to use the pause in the right way, like on the right spot. So you can always use the pause. I'm not saying you can't use it at the end of a sentence or whatever. Just be mindful when someone uses the pause at the end of a sentence and you're going down with your tone and it could be already done. People will maybe jump into and take the pause as this person is done. So sometimes this can also work if it's like a big thinking and no one wants to jump in. So it's actually good, but always keep that in mind, definitely. And yeah, in the middle of the sentence, it's just crazy. Like, why is he pausing? Like, what's happening? Just get the attention back. Like, I tried this actually at the pitch nights, just pausing randomly. I tried it as a presentation the other day, and especially when it's already tension and people are like, what's happening? And they want to know. It's just great tool.
Isn't it? Right. And also the combination out of those 5 tools, whenever I prepare a speech, I just write those 5 down still, even though I know them quite by heart. But I just put in number 1, rate of speech, number 2, volume, 3, pitch and melody, 4, tonality, 5, pause. Just those 5 things on a post-it, and just put it somewhere where I can always see it when I'm practicing in front of nobody. And just being aware of those 5 is making a big difference, big improvement for your presentation skills.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was originally like. Great tool, like they're amazing tools. It will be a little bit difficult to like not have used them at all in your life, and then suddenly you can't just suddenly have all of them. That's basically impossible. So when I was listening to it, I thought, okay, how can I like really like use them and put them into practice? And I would think, like you just said, having the mindset, and maybe I would propose, if you have like a speech, you could literally go to the speech first, like 5 times kinda, and each time you will really just put emphasis on one thing. And then you kind of get the feeling maybe. What do you think about that idea?
Yes, I also think that just focusing yourself on those things and also recording yourself of the speech and control if you really implemented those 5 foundations is really nice. And also those little exercises which you can do really in between studying sessions or something, may it be the siren technique or the very dramatic pauses and the tonality that you trying to express your emotions even more with your face. Doing those is going to be a really big difference. I really don't underestimate, but 80% improvement for most of the people there. It's crazy. It's really nice.
I will take it with me and try this next time as well.
Really nice. I'm looking forward to that. And especially before I learned this, we kind of tried it out already at the pitch nights, which was before my education in public speaking. It's weird.
That's true.
Yeah. So I also mentioned that a very big topic of public speaking and talking in front of an audience is storytelling. And it is quite interesting how different the perspectives and the knowledge sources are. So I would be really curious to hear some of your knowledge and your perspectives about storytelling.
Yeah. Oh, that I love this topic. It's great. Like, I do think storytelling is just one of the maybe even the most important tool to be good on stage. So if I think about any big talk, they usually use storytelling techniques. They take you to like their memory, they take you to a place, they will make it visible. So first of all, I just want to really underline this: storytelling is so important, and everyone who is not yet very sophisticated or hasn't heard about it probably should, if one wants to improve in presenting, probably should look into storytelling as a tool. And yeah, so what is storytelling? Basically, storytelling is the technique of using a story when you're presenting and when you're presenting an idea or your topic or whatever. So you want to take your audience with you to this story, to this imaginary place, time, whatever. So you really want to like draw them in. So you're probably gonna start by presenting your idea, and then just randomly said, like, last time I went fishing, and I was at this really nice harbor where there was like boats on the right side and fish market on the left side. It was very smelly, actually. It was very smelly. So and then you draw them in, and then you tell them, oh, I went on this boat, and then actually it wasn't so much about like the fishing or something, but it was like this the thing that happens that you learned at the boat. So that's kind of the idea. I just very briefly did it, but you really want to like make a story out of it. And then this is only one part, kind of like drawing into your imaginary story place, and then also really making like heroes and like villains and something, because you always want to have like a problem, like a problem at the beginning, and then it maybe even gets bad, and you want to get the attention and the tension up there before you come out with the solution. So even when you do like product placement, and you want to like present your idea of like a startup or whatever, you start with your problem, and even like say, okay, remember when you went to the supermarket and didn't have cash or card or whatever? That's a problem. And then you talk to them, and then they think about, oh yeah, that's actually a problem, and then he comes or she comes up with the solution. And this is kind of the storytelling what I'm thinking of. What do you think, Christoph?
Yes, really well said. It's especially making those characters and making your knowledge alive. You can do a very boring PowerPoint presentation with bullet points, And yeah, we don't need any competences for that, but storytelling, attracting and triggering all your senses. You were talking about, of course, the eye, making it as picturable as possible, this area, the situation, also the smell you mentioned, what you hear, what is a person saying, what are you saying, and all of those things, even though you just mentioned one sentence about the situation and your surrounding on the harbor, I already pictured it. Something like the blue elephant. Everybody's now picturing a blue elephant because we described it a little bit. And now if you put a little bit more effort in it and really describe the situation, what are the sounds, how are the people you getting sucked into this situation and live in it during the story which we're going to tell.
That's true.
And yeah.
The senses are huge. Like,
yeah,
that's how we remember and how our brain neurons connect. So the more senses you use, the more likely the person will remember. And when you do your storytelling with a lot of senses and taking the audience in, they are more likely to remember. And yeah, so keep that in mind by storytelling.
Quite interesting also, seeing it from a neurological perspective. If you cut up off your brain, slice your brain and you see into your brain, we have in front, of course, the neocortex, which is here for rational thinking and for processing language. So if a person just talks about bullet points, this is where it's going. But for once, it is not only here for it's not here for emotions, and secondly, it's also not behavioral. So it doesn't do any decision making. Decision making is in a limbic system.
What does the decision making do? Who does it do? Who does it do?
The decision making. What do you say?
Yeah, I was just giving you the entrance. So
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah, the limbic system. So the limbic system is here for processing emotions. It cannot process words and language, but it's here for your decisions. So if you're trying to sell somebody something and try to do it with functions and technical terms and data, you're gonna fail. So it has to be done with emotions. That's why also the golden circle of Simon Sinek. Why in the middle? It's the limbic system. And then going outwards, because then it's also somehow necessary that the neocortex is rationalizing and persuading yourself to the decision, but the decision is long made already in the limbic system. Little neurology session. That's all I have.
Yeah, marketing uses this a lot. So they always want to target the limbic system and the emotions, because in the end, it's the emotions that like drive us and to buy stuff and to believe in a story, to listen to someone. So it's actually, I haven't thought about this in a long while, but yeah, the limbic system is what makes it count.
What are some storytelling techniques which you use consciously or maybe just unconsciously when you say, I use that, I didn't know?
I mean, besides what I already mentioned, I don't think I use so many conscious tricks or tools. Just like try to make it appealing story, to not make it boring, to make it interesting, and maybe using to hide a little, like don't come out with the solution right away. Just make it more tense and let them wait a little bit. Picture it. And one thing actually I got from your input was the storybook. I haven't really done it a lot, but but the idea of writing down stories somewhere in a book or on the laptop or wherever, when you already have like a story that you could potentially tell someone, it's just a great idea, because then when it comes up, and it will come up, and you will have the opportunity at some point, you probably have to fit it in this environment, but still you can use the storybooks idea and the storytelling, and then you way better by by doing this then.
Yes. And it's also an art piece, which I was taught is a so-called linking, that you have the possibility to link any story to any learning you have. So
Ooh,
yeah. It's quite
difficult.
interesting, but it goes way down into depth. So I won't emphasize a lot. But it's really like my story about the Taekwondo thing, where I taught the black belts, even though I wasn't a black belt, and I tried to connect this to entrepreneurship. This is one of my standard story, which I tell every time I have a new class. Sorry.
So you can basically connect any story to any situation.
Yes. The more abstract, the more funny, of course. But it's if you have the hang of it, then it's really effective. It's really cool.
I actually, I agree. I also had, I think I've had those kind of very weird connections. So yeah.
You have them naturally. You don't have to create them.
I think everything is connected, to be honest. So
yes, that's why linking exists. And of course, it has to be then linked to something useful. Like if you give a speech about entrepreneurship, you take a story which you like and you're already prepared in your story library, and then link it to the topic or the point you want to make. It's just some kind of example, and then you link it to them. Why I'm saying this is because blah blah blah, and then you say, and then after you told the story, the awareness and the consciousness is wide open of the audience, so you can just pour in knowledge. So it's really nice. That's storytelling. Maybe one thing I could tackle, which is maybe the right time, is the angels or the devil's cocktail. We already talked about neurologically, so this is perfect. Oh, now I'm here again. 4 hormones which can be induced by storytelling. Do you know this one?
No.
So this is also how I categorize my stories in my story library, is which hormones are getting produced when you hear this story. First of one is dopamine. We know this one. It raises focus, attention, energy, motivation, memory retention, and curiosity. So if you tell a story which triggers dopamine, then those things get better. How beautiful is that? Then there's oxytocin, which raises generosity, trust, bonding, empathy, and connection. A very emotional story, for example, right? Then people, how is it called if people give money to, for example, Caritas?
Like charity?
A charity event. Thank you very much. Yeah. So in a charity event, of course, in the beginning, there's an emotional story because oxytocin is getting into your bloodstream and generosity is rising. It's not bad, but if you're aware of this tool, then it could help you. Number 3 is endorphins, which also raises creativity, your presence, you're more relaxed, rapport, and focus. So you're more focused. You just tell a funny story, cool story, and then you can go more into the knowledge and pour knowledge into those brains. This is the angel's cocktail. And the devil's cocktail, which has one hormone, which is cortisol. Cortisol is a stress hormone, so less tolerance, less creativity, and less memory retention. And cortisol cannot only be created or injected by a bad story, but also bad storytelling technique. So if you're talking not clearly, if you're not talking loud enough, so you really have to listen to it, you have pauses, and so it's weird. It drives people crazy because it puts cortisol in your bloodstream and your tolerance and creativity are lowering. And if you want to know how you can inject those hormones into your stories and which stories you should use and which tricks, contact me and we will make a coaching session out of it.
Oh, that's nice.
It's getting way into depth. I'm sorry. Yeah.
That's very cool. I mean, Yeah, I do know about like the effects of those hormones, but I never thought about listing them, like using them intentionally with my stories.
Yes.
So I love the idea actually to, I mean, I can use Notion perfectly for this, have my storybook, and then I can click my kind of my emotion, or like my hormone that is produced with it
Yes.
next to it. So yeah, that's a great idea, because you always want to like have an intention with the story, right? So you can categorize them very well. That's pretty
Yes.
good.
And
Yeah.
it's also because some people say, oh, you're playing with hormones, that's black magic, and you're just trying to persuade people to buy stuff, which is, yeah, of course, true. If some people want to use those competencies for sales and sell people something that they don't need, that's black magic from my viewpoint. But I really have to say that storytelling isn't persuading anybody, but storytelling is just building connection, and connection is building influence on those people, which is for me a way more acceptable way and path, because if they are really connected to you, that cannot be faked. Through good storytelling, you cannot just directly persuade them and influence them, but you just can create a connection, which then can be used on both behalves for influence. I hope that makes it more positive.
I also do you think it's always the intention. Like if you're not intentionally doing something bad, it's not black magic or whatever.
Yeah.
Like you try the same thing with just trying to improve your speech or using some methods or tools. When I used the Gewaltfreie Kommunikation, which is in English
Gewaltfrei. Yeah, harmless.
There's a harmless communication.
Yeah.
Rosenberg, from Rosenberg. So I use this tool intentionally
in German.
with no, Rosenberg is actually, that's his name. So
yeah, but you used it in German because we don't know the word of harmless
yes.
communication.
So I used this tool and I was speaking in German, and the other party actually was my uncle. So my uncle said, yeah, you're using this now, but then you're not authentic. And I am like, no, I mean, yes, I mean, you can like make an argument for it, but I don't think it is not authentic. It's just like you're trying to improve your way of like doing, like that's just changing, right? Like you're changing, and when you're doing storytelling, that's all authentic as long as you are like still authentic. And if I do this authentically, and if you like authentically sell your idea and you stand behind your idea and think this idea is great for the people, it's not black magic at all, in my opinion. So
non-violent communication.
It is non-violent communication. There we go. Thank you, Christoph.
Communication. And I really have to say, it's only not authentic if you don't believe it yourself. If you believe it yourself, then it's authentic.
Yeah. And another thing I kind of want to like link to this here is, because you talked about the rate of speech. And I used to in German, I used to speak super fast. Like it was years ago, probably when I was in high school or something. I was speaking very quick, very fast. And I was even stumbling over my words. And this actually, yeah, people around me, or especially my family, said I talk too fast. And then I really made it to my mission to slow down my speech, yeah. And now I do. I would even think I'm not sure. Do you think I'm considered a slow, fast, normal speaker? What do you think?
I think we both are fast speakers, which is quite all right. This is our natural trait. It's more time efficient, and we are time efficient. But for speeches, yeah, it's just something that you can be aware of, because when you're off the stage, you can talk naturally. It is understandable. Our pronunciation is all right in German, but on stage, if we are aware of that, we have the tendency to talk fast, and I think everybody has the tendency to talk fast,
of course.
but for us especially, then we just put more energy into this topic, and we're good to go.
Yeah, and I do think, going back to my story, I do think I changed it to that degree that I actually became more understandable. And that was the goal in the end. It wasn't the goal to be the slowest speaker. It was just the goal to be understandable and not be known as someone who is speaking too fast and that then stumbling over his words. So I'm quite happy with that improvement. And yeah, in that sense, it's a change, but it's authentic because I believed in it, and I really liked. Actually, now I do like talking slow and sometimes even a little bit too slow, so I make people a little bit nervous, but that's okay. That's okay.
And you also get a lot of satisfaction to make other people a little bit uncomfortable, right?
Sometimes it can be, and this is actually a tool, right? You can like talk. I mean, obviously, we're not encouraging anyone to be annoying or something, but I mean, in the end, you can use it as make it more tense, the situation, more intense, and talk slower, and
and play with it.
Play with it, yeah.
3 days ago, I also heard from a public speaker that it's a completely wrong perspective of saying that you have to use your voice. And if you play with your voice, it's way more natural and way more healthy, your approach to your voice. You don't use your piano or your guitar. You play with it, and then you fool around, and then you try out stuff, and then you practice it more, and then you go maybe to a teacher or a coach and also practice it at home. You practice slow at first, then you practice a lot of weird practices and exercises. You play with it. It's gonna be nice.
That's a nice thing, nice way to look at. And I actually I tried to change a little bit my speaking in the last days intentionally, so kind of like played with it, but I like the playing aspect. So now I'm thinking about like more playingful, and I try to be more calm and slow when I like being in a conversation slash discussion, because I think, so from what I've seen so far, usually the person that is more calm, slow, and even has a little bit more deeper voice is usually regarded as the person in the conversation or discussion that is more right than the other one, because the other one gets like, oh yes, why is this, and blah blah, and is more like on the back foot, while the other one is just calm in there and like, and then why is this so? And then actually asking questions is the other thing I kind of put down for myself, because when you attack someone in a conversation, and not attacking, but like in a conversation, in a discussion, sometimes you have different opinions, right? So you have you have another opinion than your counterpartner, and you wanna take your opinion and put it out there. That's like system A, which is confrontative, right? And he or she will probably can be offended, or at least be confronted. But if you have your opinion, but just rephrase it as a question, or use his or her opinion and put it in another light and use a question, the other one is actually not, first of all, not so much offended, and actually can put his or her opinion out there, so you can come to more of like a conclusive way. So those two things. What do you think?
It's way more natural. Of course, the counterpartner who was quite offensive in the first part, but also they get their way, and you leave this discussion more fulfilled and more, it's way better. And to also find some common ground, to be constructive, not in a defensive mode. Because I also think that if a person is in a very offensive and very aggressive mood, and therefore also throws out their words, it's just physics that those words will bounce back.
Yeah, it's physics.
But if you just take the hit and say, come here, let's talk about it, then it's a completely different. He or she will be surprised in first, but it's just better. So I don't know when was my last fight, I have to say. And people also say it about my grandfather. My grandfather, also my grandmother says it, that my grandfather, you cannot fight with my grandfather. Never. And he also said he didn't have a fight, especially
How
as an
was he?
adult. Sorry?
Like in terms of, how was he in terms of speaking habits and communication habits?
Always calm and constructive.
Calm and constructive.
He carves you space for you, right? If a person comes to you very offensive and very aggressive, then most people go full into block mode and say, you cannot enter my personal space. Grandfather carves out space, says, here, I have space for you. Sit down. Let's talk about it. The good thing is that he now, of course, also has the advantage of giving as much space as he wants. And the person in front of you, the counterpartner, is less probable. There's a lesser probability that they want more space, if you even give them space, right? So it's just a small space, and I say, you can sit here, come here, we talk about this.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's fantastic. I also never fought with my grandfather, but that's okay.
That's so nice, actually. Like, and it kind of speaks to the thing, you don't need to fight in order to like resolve a conflict, a problem, a discussion or anything. So when you have those, even like in most trivial situation, like discussion in class or like debates or whatever, like you wanna, it's not about winning, it's or winning on yourself and win lose, but it's like kind of win-win and coming to a common ground. So really understanding the other person, which kind of brings me to the other thing is, because I just thought about it and I wrote it down, is listen deeply and understanding the other person very much.
Let's go deep into this.
So actually it is when I mentioned my favorite book, the 7 habits of highly effective people, it's one of the habits. It's in a lot of books, actually. It's a very much spoken topic to really, and it's not just listening to the person, like the words, but really like trying to understand deeply the desires, the problem, the emotions, kind of being in a moment, and really understanding the other person when you're talking. And not, and actually when you have a conversation, right, like we have right now, or with another classmate, not thinking about what I want to say next, because usually that's what a lot of people do, and I do that too sometimes, but really like put it away, whatever, just 100% focus on this person at hand, and then when this phrase is done, then you can think about what you want to say next.
Yes. And also there's a good pause in between where you can both process some stuff, and then afterwards you think about what you're going to say next. It's actually called one-upping, the effect of that you just don't even listen what the counterpartner says, but you just think about what you're going to say next and just wait until the other person stops talking, and then you shoot in with your story. Yeah, this is one of 4 things in passive listening, which it's also, I really like it, that it's also a topic of public speaking, that the listening part in a conversation. And in passive listening, number 1 is judging. If you're judging a person, this is not very constructive, and it's called also in the passive listening thing. Giving advice. The last podcast I showed you from Simon Sinek about giving advice and just listening, giving space. Also quite nice. Yeah, number 3 is one-upping, and number 4 is mind reading.
Mind reading?
So you're just trying to read their mind and interpret stuff into it, but don't really just listen to the words.
I see.
Also going into another thought path.
Going one step too far, I would say, because I still would say, when I said describe my deeply listening deeply, I think it's important to understand the person, but don't go too far to judge, to think about what they might, just really think about what they're saying and what they want to say with that, and not with what it could be.
I'm sorry. I just saw myself in the one-upping.
Oh, you did. Oh, we
See?
caught you.
Oh goodness, we recorded it. Now it's official. Yeah, that's one thing of passive listening, and of course also in a podcast, quite interesting that the highest priority is to keep the knowledge flow going.
Mm-hmm.
So also quite different changes. In active listening, there are also four things that you can think about, or four phrases. For example, if you're answering a question or it's just your turn to talk, then you can active listen by maybe saying what I'm hearing is. So you reflect the things of the other person feels heard, and especially feels understood. So they feel understood if you let them repeat what they have said. Is it understandable?
No, I honestly didn't get it.
That's okay. Did you one-up me? I'm just kidding.
I don't know. I tried to understand it, but
So first of all is to recall the content and the words, which is when you're answering a person with the exact words like what I am hearing is. What I'm hearing is that you don't feel yourself heard. So this is some kind of building connection by letting the other person feeling understood.
So we're talking about when you're having a conversation with someone, how to make it how to be more present and let the other person feel understood.
Yes, feel understood.
You want to let the other person be understood, so you kind of understand them and rephrase it.
Yes, and also not trying to interpret a lot more stuff into it, but just rephrasing the things how they really just said it. So the reason why you do this is not that you understand it better, but that the other person is feeling heard. This is actually a technique of also psychotherapists. I've did a workshop like 3 years ago on a weekend, and this is actually how they work. They just use this phrase, what I heard is, and then you reflect what you really heard. Right?
So this is actually super. I really think this is super important. Rephrasing, it's great for like so many reasons. Like you already gave us 2 reasons. And also additionally, not only does the other one feel understood, but you can also make sure that you're talking about the same thing, right? So there's always still the possibility, even if you just try to not judge and not interpret anything, there's still a possibility that you will, which human beings, so that you still understood it wrongly, or that he or she didn't put it out the right words she wanted to. And then you have the opportunity to get common ground again.
Yeah, to get common ground again.
So rephrasing, that's great. Okay, that was the first thing, right? Rephrasing.
Yes, and the other 3 things have the same concept. You just switch the words. So the first one is that you feel understood. I really have to say that the active and passive listening part is also a thing which I really have to practice and didn't see through completely when they were taught. But also feeling connected to the person is when you're actually repeating what you're sensing out of the monologue of your counterparty. And these are your moods and the emotions which are provided and delivered with the speech of the other person.
That's kind of like the non-violent communication. I kind of thought about this because the non-violent, it is very similar now, because non-violent communication is 4 steps. So first, you just putting out the situation, what happened without any judgment, just facts, like something that cannot be misunderstood. Then secondly, you think about how it made you feel. So no one can actually disprove it, because it's your feelings. So you just tell the person, I feel this and this way, and this made me feel this way. And thirdly, you're talking about, again, your needs, like what you usually need. Like, I need I usually need people to tell me this. I need a lot of space here, or free time, or I need to on the weekends I need this. So again, like, what do you need? And then the fourth thing would be the question, like the asking like a concrete question for the future to make it better.
I heard about the term nonviolent communication, but I never actually looked into it. So it's quite interesting how you presented it. Yeah, and it's so cool how it reflected in all the parts that we said. That, yeah, it's so much more constructive to reflect, to talk about your own feelings. This is a good part, because if you really say, this is how you made me feel, or this is how I feel in this situation, nobody can say anything about it, because your feelings are always right, or always have the right to exist right here. So it's really nice and really cool. And yeah, I think I subconsciously tried to teach this also to some other counterparts.
Yeah, sadly it's already out there, Rosenberg.
Oh no, it's
so
okay. Yeah.
you have to challenge him.
I'm going. Is he alive yet? Still?
I don't think he's still alive.
All right. I cannot argue with him. That's so bad. Yes. So to sum up also those active listening parts, as we said, active listening, the other person feels understood, that a person can feel connected. With vocal change, it sounds like that you want to say blah blah blah. The other person feels heard, and with body language, it looks like the other person can be felt seen. Right? And those 4 things, I really have to look into it a little more, how you can practically really implement those techniques and this framework and those principles. But yeah, I think we have proven that listening is almost more important than talking, your communication skills. And just to sum it up, maybe with also a little bit of a graphical demonstration, when you have competences in one area, so you are a specialist in, give me a topic.
Boats.
We love boats. Let's say,
see, I thought about the boats because of my story.
Oh,
so the story is in the head. So it's
always
crazy.
in the head. Yeah, it's always connected for the rest of the day today. But if you have very good competences in the boats, right, and you want to present those competences in the boats, yeah, you have an interview in boat selling, for example, or boat building, and your competences are very high, but your speaking competences are this low. People think that also your knowledge and your competences in boats is just as high as your speaking competences. So really, of course, it matters how high your competences are in this specific field, in those boats. But you really only can communicate those competences if those competences are just as high as your boat competences. Boats.
So you need to step up your communication skills. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, as high as your other skills.
So is it always necessary?
I think so.
I mean, he's a coach, so I mean, whatever. Like, he's a communication coach, so he will always say that. I do think communication is super, super important for everyone, basically. For some people more, for some people less. All right, before we conclude this episode, Christoph, what was your favorite part, and maybe something new you can take home with and will practice in the future?
Thank you for this question. I really have to say that it's more and more surprising of course, there are so many frameworks and things you can learn, and people who have a completely new perspective and think about public speaking and storytelling in a completely new way. But it's really soothing and positively surprising for me that we all are talking about the same thing. We all already know how to speak in front of people. It just got compressed down back your competences in the back of your head, and it's all existing already. So your competences and the things, all those techniques are just here to make it more naturally how you already were talking as a little child.
Mhm.
And it's quite interesting how we both were talking about a thing and have heard it already in another audience and in other circumstances. That's really nice.
What's your favorite? Oh yeah, go on.
Nes, you say it, because I would have bounced this question right back to you.
Okay. My favorite part about this episode. I actually do like the pause. I just used it. No, but the things, the 5 things you mentioned are really interesting, and I think I will look into those things more to really use them next time I have a speech or anything presentation. Oh, actually on Tuesday I do. I have a presentation for class. So yeah, I'm gonna use this. I'm really trying to incorporate those things. And those are also practical tools. So I do like that, putting more emphasis consciously on your speaking habits. And yeah, I will try to improve this. This was probably my favorite part, and I can really like take this with me. And maybe I also like do the story library or storybook with the different like categories. Like what do I wanna like induce? What kind of emotions? Because it's always about emotions. So I think those 2 things I will take home with me.
That's really nice. Can I add to my favorite part something? Because there were so many.
Yes, that's what I wanted to ask. Yeah.
I really like the nonviolent communication. I really have to look into it a little more, because I haven't yet. And the second thing is that we both have seen me using passive listening, even though I thought of myself as a very active listener. So I would really also look into the active listening thing, and also trying to prevent passive listening attributes, so that the listening part is just as important as the speaking part.
That's nice. Yeah, I think that's something to practice, and I think everyone will have to practice, because I do as well. Like I think no one is perfect with this active listening. Like the people that are very good, like they can be very proud. It's difficult. So that's very nice. That's very nice.
Beautiful. That was a lot in my comfort zone, I have to say. I love those topics. So if anybody has any questions, we would love to hear them in the comments or on social media. Depends on where you're looking into it. Yeah, what do you have to say in the conclusion? Except Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, of course. I'm very satisfied. I like this episode a lot. I did learn a lot from you. And also just talking about the things, like you said, like there's a lot of like hidden things in our brain. We just have to kind of dig it up. And I liked it a lot. Thank you for the listeners. Thank you for tuning in. Again, just to remember, like we will have one episode every 2 weeks on Spotify. You can follow us on our Instagram account, also Success Lab podcast actually on Instagram. And yeah, we appreciate every kind of feedback. Please be constructive. Tell us what you want to listen to, what topics you want us to talk about, and also tell us if you think we are wrong, or tell us anything.
Yes, we'd love to. Thank you for listening. Tim, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Christoph.